Everything is Awesome is part of Courts and Parts, a podcast network featuring pop culture, TV, movie, and geek podcasts. Check out some of our other shows, like TV Ate My Brain, Let's Chat with Revelin Friends, and Podstalgic at courtsandparts.com.
Awesome.
Just tell people they're awesome and mean it.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Did you have an awesome time? Did you drink awesome shooters and listen to awesome music and then just sit around and soak up each other's awesomeness?
Awesome. Awesome. That was awesome. You guys are awesome. No, you're awesome. You are awesome.
Sir, you are awesome. Seriously.
Awesome. Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Welcome to this week's edition of Everything is Awesome. I am your host, Kev, and this is the show where we sit down to talk to awesome people about awesome things. And thank you for choosing to spend your time with me right now. In this new age in 2018 with so many options for content, it means a lot that you're spending an hour listening to me and some of my friends just sit around and talk about what they do and whatnot and why they're awesome. And it's greatly appreciated, and I hate to ask you to do more, but if you could do more, that'd be great. While you're listening to us, if you could just pop on to iTunes and leave a 5-star review. Those reviews help us get into more feeds where we're rated higher, and more people listen to us. The more people that listen to us means that they'll have more reviews for the show, and the more reviews, it's a vicious cycle of more people listening to this show so that we can do cooler things. Of course, word of mouth recommendations also is very helpful. So if you're sitting with a friend, pop on our show while you're in the car or something so that we can get more people hooked on the show. All that leads to doing cooler things like our live shows that we've done in the past, expanding into doing. I really enjoyed our 100th episode where we broke the format and we just played a game for the hour instead of doing a talk show. So that all helps. The word of mouth recommendations and reviews helps us do things like that. I would love to start making more con appearances and doing maybe convention panels and whatnot. And that would be, ways that you could help us. You can also support us for a small fee on patreon.com/thatentertains. That supports the entire That Entertains podcast network, as well as Everything is Awesome. Mainly, it helps cover hosting fees and podcasting fees, and builds up a nice little emergency fund for all the podcasters on the network in case equipment breaks and whatnot. But it covers maintenance fees, it covers hosting fees, and hopefully one day it also kind of covers some expenses for all the time that all these podcasters are putting into it. So check it out. It was supposed to be done being reformatted by now, but by the time you're sitting down to Easter dinner, it'll be ready for you with all new rewards and whatnot. But you still get early access to all the That's Entertainment Podcast Network podcasts, as well as Everything is Awesome, and any other audio that we do and video that we do for That's Entertainment will all be put on our Patreon for early access and stuff like that. Anyway, it's been a while since we posted an episode here on our Everything is Awesome feed. It was, normally my end of year blues are over by, mid-January, and I'm back to doing things normal, and my goal for 2018 is to avoid those the end of year blues that I get. But January was a very stressful month. We had the live show, the one-day festival that we were planning, and we had a sponsor who didn't really fulfill their end of the bargain when it came to promoting us, which was very disappointing. And that, on top of just the average normal stress that you get from putting on one of these shows, I just walked into it not having a good time. And I enjoyed every show, performed well. They all probably aired their episodes already. We'll be airing ours in a couple days here. But everyone, I think, knocked it out of the park. And I enjoyed sitting down as a listener. But it was as a performer and a showrunner that I felt like I really dropped the ball. And first and foremost, I want to thank everyone that came out to watch all the shows, whether it was Everything is Awesome or any of the shows in the lineup. I want to thank all the shows and the hosts that partook in that live event. They all knocked it out of the park. Like I said, they were all super enjoyable to sit down and listen to and watch them do their live show. and graciously donated their time to come do it. And at the same time, to those hosts and performers, I do want to take a minute and say I am sorry for dropping the ball and not rising to the occasion as the leader I should have been that day. From what I hear, everyone thinks I'm being way too hard on myself, but you're your own best critic, as they say. So, learning experience. This one was a big learning experience, even more so than the first one. And not just for our one-day festival that we do every year, but it was a learning experience for live shows in general. And also, January also is really stressful because some stuff that was happening outside of Everything Is Awesome within the That's Entertainment Podcast Network was happening. It was really the first time something negative has happened in the podcasting community, at least with me, for the first time since I started this show. And it took a toll on me and continues to take its toll on me as I have to, because of course when I thought it was all settled, it creeped back up again in February. But I'm in the process of hopefully kind of getting that all settled as far as I'm concerned on my end, and moving past that and just continuing to hopefully embrace the positive podcasting community, like the Philadelphia Podcasting Society, Potter and Family, and Twitter. Really, 99.9% of the podcasting community that I've run into is super welcoming and super, just kind. And I was very surprised to run into the situation that I ran into. I was not expecting it at all. And it's my fault for not posting shows on time, but there was a reason behind it. Whether you agree with that reason or not, I don't know. But 2018 here is we're gonna be posting 2 episodes a week until we're caught up on where we should be. So I think by April 1st we will be all caught up. And on a normal weekly schedule on our Wednesdays, and hopefully in 2018, my goal is to just kind of find the joy in podcasting again, stick to a weekly schedule, and try not to miss anything, and be prepared for weeks that I'm not going to be around. And then also for I also want to get through the year without having like an emotional breakdown like I typically do at the end of the year now. So I'm going to try to get through all that. And if I can get through all that, great. I'm taking a step back, I think, from live shows for now for several reasons. But we'll definitely be, if we can do some convention appearances, we will. We've applied to a couple conventions, and we'll hopefully be doing the Philadelphia Podcast Fest again this year. I've babbled on long enough, guys, and we have a really good show this week with BK Mullen. Now, this show was recorded before the Super Bowl, but after the NFC championship game. So there's obviously, we all know what happened with the Super Bowl this year. Go Birds. But this was a peek into the mindset of 2 fans, BK Mullen from the Poppin' Dads podcast, and myself, just talking football. It was something that I haven't done in a long time. There's not many people that I know real good that watch football and enjoy it as much as I do. And BK is one of them, and he enjoys it way more than I do. He probably looks at me the way I look at everyone else, because I'm not, I've been out of it for a couple years with kids and whatnot. I haven't been paying attention to the entire NFL like I used to, and barely paying attention to the Eagles. But for the last, since the Doug Peterson era, for the last 2 years, I've been on watch, and I've been really impressed, and was happy with last year's. I knew it was a rebuilding year, and obviously very happy with the performance this year as an Eagles fan. So get into the mindset of about a month and a half old conversation between 2 Eagles fans talking about football and the Eagles specifically, and what we think we have in store for the future. And make sure you check out BK Mullen on Twitter at BKMullen_, I believe is his Twitter handle. We'll have all the plugs in the show notes. You can find me on Twitter at ThatNerdyKev and whatnot. You can find the show at Real Awesome Pod, patreon.com/thatentertains. I would say if you want to hold off till April, I would say April 1st is going to be our hard reset, and we're going to, that's when we're going to be caught up on everything, and that's when we are going to be kind of pushing out some exciting content, hopefully, on the Patreon. So, without further ado, here is my conversation with BK Mullen. I guess because you posted something about the Eagles, and obviously we're practically the same person when you look at side-by-side pictures.
Right.
I wanted to chat about the game, but I also wanted to, the game, the season, but also my buddy had like some interesting points that I don't necessarily know if I agree with.
Okay.
But, like, it's just kind of like why he does not like the Eagles, being from Philly. And being like a Flyers and Phillies fan and stuff like that.
Right.
I kind of want to get into that, but let's start on we'll say positive note. Man, how about that game against the Vikings?
Okay. So full disclosure, I had said from the beginning that if we were gonna lose to anybody, I'm happy that it's the Vikings.
Okay.
Because I have a real soft spot for Case Keenum.
Mm-hmm.
Especially watching All or Nothing on Amazon and seeing his final season with the Rams, and you could just see the dejection in his face at the end of the season and all that jazz of just, where am I going to go next? What's going to happen next? Should I give up on football? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden he has this amazing year. Yeah. Just the best of his career, that sort of thing. All of a sudden it's clicking for him. So I was fully prepared to lose. I just was. Not because I'm a negative Eagles fan, not because I don't like Nick Foles, but just because, you know what? It's okay. It's going to be all right. But nah, you couldn't have asked for a better game out of every single one of the Eagles players. It was just absolutely brilliant.
So my season, like, since I've had kids, my football watching has gone down. I used to watch, pretty hardcore because I was in fantasy leagues and stuff. So I became fans of, like, players on teams that weren't the Eagles and even other teams. Obviously Eagles are always number one, but it's been at least 6 years since I've had like the opportunity to sit down and watch more than one game a season. Right. And even this year, like when we were out at Red Robin, my son was watching a college game and he's like, "Hey, is that football?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's football, dummy." and he's like, "Oh, can we watch that?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, I'm not a big fan of college ball, but like tomorrow's the big, like an Eagles game. We can watch that." Yeah. And like he got through like the first half, and he's slowly getting to the point where like he's starting to dig it. So. Right. This season's definitely the most I've watched, and I'll be the first to say I started the season off saying like, the Eagles are going to be not bad, but it's going to be, we're still in our rebuilding years here. And I wrote off the first couple like games based off of not watching them, just kind of reading headlines and stuff. Like everyone seemed to be super like on the Eagles train about, hey, we're going to the Super Bowl. It's week 3. We're going to the Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah.
And it wasn't until I forget what game it was, but it was about halfway through the season when I completely forgot they were playing. I think it was a Thursday night game, but it was on Amazon. And even though my big TV was in front of me, because I was happened to be shopping on Amazon and the Eagles game was on, I just sat on my 14-inch laptop watching the game. And that's what I clicked. I was like, oh my God, we're amazing.
We could do this. Holy. Yeah. Now, starting off the season, like, I always like to try and be honest. Yeah. I like to try and not be the overly optimistic Eagles fan who's like, it's our time. I'm going to get a tattoo. We're going to be Super Bowl champion. Like that sort of shit. And so, but I had a really good feeling that, okay, so last year, Doug Peterson's first year as a head coach, and, the first season for that coaching staff as a whole, and then Carson Wentz in his, his very first year. So, yeah, we did meh, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So going into this year, okay, we got LeGarrette Blount for a 1-year deal. And we've got Alshon Jeffrey for a 1-year deal, which both of those have since changed. Or no, Jeffrey has since changed. I think he's 5 years now. They handed him a contract. But it was one of those things where as the offseason progressed, I was like, I'll tell you what, the way this team is shaping up, if Carson can grow over the offseason to become better than he was last season, and if the coaches get along and everything gels and everything molds together, then we could at the very least make a wild card game.
Yeah.
Are we going to win that wild card game? No, I don't think so. I did not think that we were playoff caliber at all, except for the possibility of a wild card game.
Yeah. And I would say, like, just from the few games I saw last year and I mean, this is probably one of the first off seasons I fully just gave up not paying attention because it just was not, possible for me,
right.
With all the other things that I do. Football has slid down, but I know I've always kept a little bit of an ear to what's happening. And, but not this off season. This off season, I kind of didn't pay attention. So, I mean, my thought process at the beginning of the season, based just purely on like the clips that I've seen and the headlines before that Amazon Prime game, was about the same. I was like, all right, guys, we're not a Super Bowl team, but I'll give you, we could probably, get in the playoffs, maybe take the division, but not the conference.
Right. Yeah. And it was one of those things too, where, I tried to reserve myself a little bit into the mindset of no matter how well we do, whether we do make it to the playoffs or not, or whatever, as long as we do better than last year, as long as there's growth, then I can absolutely believe in this team to succeed. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's always every kind of regime, that's always kind of my thought process of all right, let's do better than last year. And it was hard during the Andy Reid McNabb years because they were at such a high level. It's well, I mean, doing better is a Super Bowl. We're not doing it.
Right. Yeah.
But the, since that era has gone, it's always been all right, well, this year was good. Let's see what we do next year. And it's only been, I guess, this is the fourth or fifth year out of that regime.
Yeah, this is year 5. Yeah.
So, and I'd say save for that little blip, in that third year with Chip Kelly, it was, I'm happy with the results of what we've been doing. And especially just under Peterson is the ideal, I think, situation for any football team when you're kind of what we thought was a rebuilding year. It was rebuilding year and explosion year.
Yeah, breakout year. And what's interesting that a lot of people have been talking about is it's a breakout year with a lot of injuries. No Darren Sproles. Was Vinny Curry? No, Peters. Jason Peters went down with an ACL injury, I think middle of the season, maybe a little bit after the middle of the season. And then, of course, 3-4 games before the end of the season, Carson Wentz goes out. So a lot of our key players that were still in were, you got Vinny Curry, you got Kelsey.
Mm-hmm.
You got your offensive line guys, you got your defensive line guys. Lane Johnson was back this year for the offense. And interestingly, Vaitai, who had a really weird year last year, but somehow proved himself to be, first string on the line material, and did an amazing job throughout that Vikings game. It was just incredible considering he's a second-year guy, So, yeah, no, it's just I feel like the depth that we have at positions isn't perfect. It isn't great even. But what we do have is a coaching staff that, much in the same vein as Bill Belichick, who is, so well known for taking on players that nobody else wants and turning them into superstars, basically. Much in that same vein as we have a coaching staff that understands what they have, what skills each player at whatever depth they fall has, and how to use those strengths to your advantage, or at least use them to the best advantage that you can, while still maintaining a solid game plan. Yeah, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's got to be especially why everything's been working out this year.
Yeah, and especially when Wentz went down, and by that point, obviously, I was on the Super Bowl train.
Right.
Like, not just we're winning the Super Bowl, and when he went down, I mean, I'm sure you, just like me and every other Philadelphia fan, like suddenly, like our hopes and dreams were crushed.
To a certain, my blood pressure went up. I'll put it that way. Yeah.
Well, and I've I don't know why I was. Because, like, I'm trying to think back now as we're sitting here talking, why I don't like Foles, and because I've been talking so much trash on him for the last several weeks, and my fiance, who's not a football fan, she's like, she watches the playoff games, and she's like, watching the second half of the Falcons game, watching the NFC Championship game, and we're at my in-laws for the NFC game. And me and her mom, like, her mom is a huge football fan, and we're like, we both throughout the last several weeks have been trash talking Nick Foles, and she's like, this guy, he's playing good, and you guys are just terrible to him. And I'm trying to think back to, like, what exactly it is about him that happened in the past that I wasn't a fan of, and I can't pinpoint it exactly.
Well, see, for me, first of all, his face is ridiculous. All the comparisons to Napoleon Dynamite are 100% true. But anyway, no. So it's one of those deals where I can only remember, when he was our starting quarterback back in 2013. I can only remember one good game. There was the game where he put up 7 touchdowns. It was right before the end of the season. We were going into the postseason, and then of course we lost in the playoffs, which is fine. It's whatever. So all anybody can remember is that 1 7 touchdown game, and then the rest of the games that we remember, his performance was pretty. I don't want to say mediocre. Like, it did okay. But it wasn't great, and then a breakout game, and then we lost in the playoffs. I feel like the main 2 points of our disgruntledness with him as a fan base, the first one being his link to Chip Kelly.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He will, for Nick Foles, will always be known as the guy who could have been, but Chip Kelly traded him for Sam Bradford for some god-awful reason.
Oh, God, I hated that decision.
Dude, listen. I hated that decision so much. And then and it put me in such on bad terms with the Eagles in general. And then in a 1-2 combo a few weeks later, he trades away LaShawn McCoy.
Oh, yeah.
And then the owner of the Eagles, Jeffrey Lurie, comes out and says that he fully supports this decision by Chip Kelly, right? That was the moment that I took a time out, like a break, like a relationship break from the Eagles for a little while. But anyway, no. So yeah. I think the main discontentment is his connection with Chip Kelly. Every time you think about Nick Foles, you think about Chip Kelly, and that just makes you mad. And then the other thing is the places that he has been and the things that he has done outside of the Eagles, which is nowhere and not much.
Yeah.
He went to the Rams, and you could easily call that a failure. I don't want to call it a failure really, but it was during the Jeff Fisher era, which was just horrible for the Rams. He went somewhere else before going to Kansas City, but I can't remember where, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then the next one being Kansas City, where, obviously he's back with Andy Reid. He's behind Alex Smith, who over the past 3 years has just grown so much as a quarterback. And I think it's because of Andy Reid and because of Doug Peterson. So
yeah,
in that coach and quarterback room, you've got Andy Reid, who's just amazing with quarterbacks, even though he can't win championships. And you had Doug Peterson, a former quarterback, who's been with Andy Reid and has been a part of that system for a long time. And then you've got Alex Smith, who's bringing in, his experience from before with San Francisco and that sort of thing. And then his growth. I think that is something that Nick Foles, as the backup, was able to absorb. And even though he hasn't always been physically capable to be a starting quarterback, he's always had the mind to be a starting quarterback. And I think if you can pull one good thing about Nick Foles from being on the Rams with Jeff Fisher is one of the best defensive coordinators to have ever been. I'm pretty sure he was a defensive coordinator at one point, but his defenses have always been amazing because of him, even though he can't get the whole team together. So you've got, some of Nick's experience with reading defenses with the help of Jeff Fisher, and then becoming a better quarterback on an offensive side from Reid and crew.
Yeah.
And then coming back with Doug Peterson to a team that he feels very comfortable with, and he's got weapons. He's got the run game if he feels like he needs to go to the run game. He's got Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar having a breakout year this year, that sort of thing. So we immediately think of hate on Nick Foles because of his career so far, without much consideration of where he is now and where it's going to lead to.
And I still obviously would much rather have Wentz, much like anyone here.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. I can speak as much love about Nick Foles as I want. I want Carson Wentz.
But, obviously the last few weeks of the regular season did not really help the confidence of Philadelphia to have Nick Foles be in charge. And the first half of that Falcons game, while I don't think it was solely on the shoulders of Nick Foles, it's still, there was very little confidence. And then the second half of that game, it's all kind of turned around. And I think he said this after they won the NFC Championship, like he just, or maybe it wasn't him, maybe it was one of the announcers, but like he just needed time to gel. He just needed to, because he's, unlike Wentz, who has during the regular season practices has taken, every snap and has practiced with the first stringers.
Yeah.
Foles hasn't.
Yeah, and if you really look at even the regular season games that he did play, gosh, I don't even remember what teams did we play. Those last couple of games.
Dallas, was it Giants? I know Dallas was like our final game of the season.
Yeah, and we lost that one. That's fine.
Yeah.
But, my overall take from his, his first couple of games, which were our last 4 games of the regular season, going up against teams that are not very good on the whole. Plus, it's towards the end of the season, so everybody's tired. Each of these teams has suffered a couple injuries. And for him, you're right. He wasn't taking first-string snaps basically all year. So his ability to go from just the second string guy who's not really taking any snaps to between his first game of the regular season as the starter and the Falcons, he had that time to grow and to get into the groove and all that jazz, but there wasn't a whole lot to work with as far as the teams that they were going up against. Except for obviously the last one, the Cowboys. So what that whole dynamic in my mind is, he's taking the first string snaps, he's getting back into the leadership role, which is another part of the whole deal. The team's acceptance of him as their leader now that Carson is down. Right, that plays a big part. But So yeah, he starts getting back into the first string role. They have a couple of games against some not so good teams at this point in the season, and we win, which feels amazing. But even he knows, and we know that he's not playoff material, let's say, yet. Anyway,
yeah, he did not look like it at that point.
Right. So, but the thing that I have pointed out since he started, however many weeks ago, is that the best Nick Foles that we have seen is Nick Foles under a shit ton of pressure.
That's true.
Like big pressure situations, and especially big pressure games as a whole, is where he seems to do the best. And, I don't really have any numbers to back that up or anything like that. It's just from, my experience of watching him.
Yeah.
But I mean, the first half of the Falcons game, I can't even remember what the score was at halftime, but it was obvious that the Falcons were not doing as well as they thought they were going to do. And the Eagles were about standard of what we thought they were going to do. Yeah. So it was that weird, okay, who's going to change what at halftime to make this different? And obviously the person that stepped up on that was Nick Foles.
Yeah, and that second half of that game, like it was, while I still was like not, by the end of it, not very confident in Nick Foles. I admitted that, okay, well, if he can play like that for the whole game, we may have a shot. And I still, Sunday night or Saturday night when we beat the Falcons, up until probably, about Wednesday or Thursday before the NFC Championship game, I was slowly talking myself into the fact that we were going to win. Like it started off as like, even if we beat the Falcons, I don't think we're going to be able to take the Vikings or St. Louis, or not St. Louis, New Orleans.
Right.
And, debating who I wanted to go against. And ultimately it came down to, well, I'd rather go against a quarterback who's not Drew Brees.
Yeah.
So,
and I'll tell you what, that was my thing too, was the Minnesota Miracle, as everybody is calling it, was in fact a miracle.
Yes.
If we had to go up against Drew Brees and the Saints, something that I kept in mind was that Drew Brees and the Saints and other Saints players, the more senior Saints players, have playoff experience.
Exactly.
Almost, I would say, to be fair, almost all of the Vikings first string players have no playoff experience whatsoever. Yes. Give or take a couple of people. So I really judged it, to a certain extent on skill, but also on Nick Foles has playoff experience. Most of our offensive line has playoff experience. That sort of thing. The coaches all have playoff experience. So the pressure is on who is going to be able to perform through 4 quarters without losing their mind,
Yeah. And going into, by the time I talked myself into it, and even like in between us beating the Falcons and finding out who we were playing, my mindset was like, all right, well, even if we're going against a better defense in the Vikings, like I feel like we can still have a possibility of our defense holding back their offense, and us being able to just outscore them enough in the beginning to get to that point where it starts to crumble for the inexperienced team.
Right.
Versus having to go against the Saints, where not even like thinking about all the experience that didn't even enter my mind. It's just that there was no way if our defense couldn't hold Breeze back and stop him from just throwing that ball across the field and owning that field, we were done. I think one of the important things that, and obviously for the Vikings, it ended up not being that crucial, but scoring early and scoring touchdowns early is what I felt we needed to do in order to win the NFC game. And obviously, we didn't. We didn't need that. We just everyone. What's beautiful about that Vikings game is that everyone seemed to just step it up. Like they just seem to see like, all right, we turn it around in the second half of that Falcons game. Let's play like that. And they played like that the whole game. And it was the Eagles of pretty much the rest of the season, just with Foles instead of Wentz.
Yeah. And what's interesting, so I actually have some stats up right now for that game. Because there was something I was thinking of as far as that game was concerned that I wanted to talk about, which was, everybody was talking about Carson Wentz and the third down efficiency, right?
Yeah.
Now, I am not going to put down Carson Wentz whatsoever, but I think we can all agree at this point, especially looking at the stat of during the Vikings game on third down, we were 10 for 14, which is amazing.
That's real good.
By any stretch of the imagination, especially in the playoffs. It's more about the offensive line, the wide receivers being able to open up your routes, that sort of thing. So, it's just, gosh.
And it's
it's breathtaking to keep thinking back to the look. There was a point where there was like 30 seconds left in the fourth quarter, and I was sitting there on the couch sweating, nervous that somehow Case Keenum is going to throw a touchdown and it's going to be worth 32 points, and we're fucked.
There actually was, I would say, it was probably about halfway through the third quarter where I was like, okay, unless the Eagles really screw up, we're halfway through the third quarter here, so any kind of like sense of the Vikings figuring us out after the half, us losing our cool after the half, that seems to be gone. So unless something really bad happens, or maybe like a turnover could have really, if the Vikings capitalized on a turnover, maybe that would have changed the tide of the game.
Right.
But by the 7.5 minute mark of that third quarter, I was like, all right, I wasn't expecting the blowout that we had, but I was like, we got this in the bag. We need to get one more. We need to get one more touchdown. I'm confident that we got this game. And I think they ended up getting, at that point, like maybe a field goal and one more or something like that. Enough to where I was like, there's no way the Vikings are catching
they're not coming back to this. And it just, the way that we were able to win against the Vikings, no matter what you consider as far as stats and that sort of thing, it makes me so much more confident for the Super Bowl. It really does.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, before, during the divisional round, divisional round playoffs, because I am a Steelers fan, I back that up by the fact that they are in a separate conference. But obviously it's Eagles first. Hey, here's my rule of thumb when it comes to sports: is you can't root. You can't be a fan of a team that's in your division. So like NFC East, no, I can't be a fan of anyone in the NFC East but the Eagles. So that leaves the AFC wide open. And if honestly, I would love a Pennsylvania Super Bowl. That would have been like a dream come true.
Pennsylvania Bowl would have just melted the state. It just would have been.
Yes.
It would have been known as Pennsylvania Lake from that point on. Just become one of the Great Lakes. Everything just would have fucking disintegrated. Yeah.
But when I realized before our NFC game that the Pats won, and that was like, if we won, that's who we had to go against. I was like, well, if we somehow pull it out, I mean, it was a good run. Like, well, at least we're going to go to the Super Bowl. But you're right. Like, after seeing how much that team gelled together, they didn't miss a beat from that second half. And in fact, they improved from the second half of that Falcons game. And I don't want to say flawless, but they were pretty damn close to flawless during that Vikings game. And there's something in the air, and before we kind of move on to the other thing I wanted to talk about, we can kind of touch on the Super Bowl here, but there's something in the air, I think, where like, I know it feels like this is our third chance at a Super Bowl. We're considered the underdogs, and it's against the Pats. Like, it just, those things seem like it's just our time, no matter what, no matter if it's Wentz or Foles, to win the Super Bowl. Like, how perfect is that? These scenarios that we're considered the underdog, number one team in the NFL, considered the underdog. It's our third time going in, however many years, it's 52 years. And it's a rematch from what, 14 years ago?
2004.
Yeah. So 2004. So about 14 years ago. And, so it's a perfect storm, I think, for us to walk away with the trophy.
Yeah. And there's something to be said for the attitude of a team. And this is something that I touched on in the thing that I did the other day, talking about it, was that, all the teams that you hear, the behind the scenes stuff of, and that sort of thing, they all sort of have a motto, a mentality, that sort of thing. All of the teams that we have faced so far, anyway, the mentality has been work hard, do your job, work harder, go get it, get after it, be aggressive, that sort of thing. And for the Eagles, it's been, we're a family, let's take care of each other, let's do the best that we can, give these guys a run for their money, and let's just have fun, and without anybody saying, hey, they're just out there having fun and working hard. They're focusing on having fun and enjoying the what they have as far as the ability to play this game at a professional level that they love. The focus is doing what they love first, and following behind that is the very natural reaction to work hard at what you love doing. So this is a very natural team, as far as you don't need to ask them to work hard. You just need to ask them to do what they love. And that's what they're doing over and over and over again. And that's why we're winning. Yeah,
it is. It's, I don't know. It's just, it's a very magical feeling. It's something different and maybe it's because it's only for me, the second time that we've been to the Super Bowl since I've been alive.
Yeah. Same here. Yeah.
So it's not like, even like 14 years ago, I don't remember having the feeling of we're going to definitely win this. Like, it feels like it's our time. I probably said it because, in my 20s, I'm a typical Eagles fan, and it's, we're going to win. But it's as someone in my 30s now, in my early 30s, like, it just something feels real special. And while I'm really, I'm going to be realistic and say, obviously there's a 50-50 shot that we're going to win or lose this game. Right. It doesn't feel that way. It feels like 100% we're going to win this game. And had you said 3-4 weeks ago, hey, you're going to the Super Bowl with your backup quarterback, do you think you're going to win? I would have said no. First of all, we're getting the Super Bowl. Yeah. Like, it's, if I could go back in time and talk to myself a month ago and tell him, he would, past me would not believe what's happening right now in Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's just absolutely craziness. But I think this is the best Eagles team that we have seen. Not even since the second Super Bowl that we went to, but even since the first one that we went to.
Yeah.
I get the overwhelming sense, and I have the overwhelming feeling myself, that this is the best iteration of the Philadelphia Eagles ever.
Yeah.
And even if we don't win against the Patriots, you know what? It's been an absolutely fantastic year and a wonderful turnaround from what we were.
Yeah.
And, just gives me so much hope for where we're going next.
And it feels like, and I said this before Wentz got hurt, but I still believe it. It feels like that we could be on the cusp of building a dynasty team. Like we've had the Cowboys, we've had the Patriots, the Steelers, in like modern history, like basically that's all I've known as like your big teams that have won multiple championships since the 90s on. It feels like it, and even if we lose this game, I still feel like I'll feel the same way, mainly because if we lose the game, we lose the game because it's on those players not playing well, because they've proved to me, even with Nick Foles, that I think they've proved that they're a Super Bowl team.
Absolutely.
And so even if we lose this game, I think we can still say we're on the cusp of building a dynasty, because we have Wentz, who is going to be, he's based off him, how I saw him walking around during the Vikings game, like he's going to be fine. He's going to come back, and he's going to be the same quarterback he was this year. And I really do think that win or lose this Super Bowl, that the next 10 to 15 years, we have a couple championships in our future.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The main thing about, recovery from injury for any player is the mentality that you take to it. If you try to rush it, you're not going to come back nearly as healthy as you were before. And, time and time again, Carson Wentz has proved his, it's weird to say about a young guy, but he has proved his wisdom as far as the game is concerned and his work ethic is concerned and that sort of thing. If he doesn't come back, even if he doesn't come back as well as he was before, he's still going to be better than, 22, 23, 24 of the 32 starting quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah.
And still gives us a great chance, as an offensive unit. I really hope that we can keep this particular offensive unit together.
Yeah, agreed.
The main thing for me, if we lose this game, right, we're still the NFC champions.
Yeah.
We have a number of young players who are breaking out and who are intelligent, as well as a mix of veteran players who still have a number of years to go. Injuries or not, they still have a while yet before, they consider either, moving or leaving the league or anything like that. And here we have, this coaching staff who in its second year has taken us to a Super Bowl. I mean,
it's
absolutely fantastic.
And I don't get to talk about the coaching staff very often. But yeah, I mean, it's so much credit, I think, is obviously given to the players in the field, but obviously the last, month and a half has proven that, like, it's the coaching staff. And you mentioned earlier, they've done an incredible job with a shitty circumstance, and with their backup quarterback. Like, I feel like it's really unheard of to go to the Super Bowl with your backup and feel a sense that you're going to win it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very strange, and that may be why we're all feeling not so good about it, aside from the fact that, it's Tom Brady and the Patriots, and they're what was it? They're 3-0 in Super Bowls where they wear white jerseys. And we're the last time that we played a Super Bowl in 2004 was against Tom Brady and the Patriots, where they wore white jerseys, and we wore our greens. I gotta be honest here. I wish we were wearing black. I wish we went black out for the Super Bowl.
Definitely. I agree. But I don't know. I have a hard time really kind of believing in those sort of superstitions, and obviously, I mean, I guess there's something to it, because there are stats that back it up. Like just like the Vikings, the stat said that they were going to lose. The 0-12 of teams who are in the NFC Championship playing not in a dome have lost, and they proved the stat right, and I would say that's more of a stat than a superstition. I think the jersey color is more of a superstition.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely a superstition that just so happens to be backed up by statistics. Yeah.
because you know what? If I would say, if we were talking, and even if we were somehow in a year in 2018, 14 years had passed, and we still had McNabb playing at a super level quality, I would say that would affect McNabb and the team that he had,
right?
Save for maybe a couple of players, because that just seemed like it would affect them.
Yeah.
But the team we have now, I don't think, like, they literally take the underdog and make it their own, and they are proud to be the underdog. I think they're proud to say, oh, you think you're going to win the Super Bowl because you're wearing a white jersey? Let's show you something.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's show you what green can do.
It's like we were talking about before with just the overwhelmingly positive attitude of the team. It's as if it's one of those things where they believe in themselves so much that you can call them whatever you want, whether the number 1 seed, number 2, number 3, underdogs and not, no matter what the matchup is. They have the utmost confidence in each other, and that's what counts the most,
So, final question about this team before we get to the other topic.
Yeah.
What do you think? What happens to Nick Foles here? I guess even win or lose the Super Bowl, he has another year on his contract. But do they trade him? Do they keep him? Does he want to stay? Does he want to go?
No, they keep him. They keep him, and he wants to stay. And it's not just for the fact that he has been able to elevate himself, through these couple of games and in the playoffs and whatnot. He has the 1 year left, and obviously Doug Peterson and just the offense as a whole, they love him, they believe in him. He's as much a part of how the team operates as Carson is. And the other thing is, Carson has spent this entire successful season with Nick Foles, I don't want to say at his elbow, but that's basically what it is. Nick Foles at his elbow on the sidelines, going through plays with him and stuff like that. Every morning at 5:00 in the morning, people start rolling in to Lincoln Financial or whatever it is that they have their team meetings and stuff like that. And they see, for the first couple of weeks is like, oh, hey, look, there's Carson. He's already here. He's already been here for a half an hour watching tape for the next game. And that was just in his first year as a rookie. And now this year, from the moment Nick Foles was back in the building, he was right there with him. This is, I've said it 1,000 times already, and I'm going to say it again. This is a family team, and they believe in each other. They support each other. And it's a business, and they understand that too. But they have the option to keep him for at least another year. You keep him for another year.
And if I'm Nick Foles, I even beyond that year, like I explore the idea of sticking around because while you might, I feel like he needs a team around him to be successful.
Absolutely.
So like if he goes elsewhere as a starting quarterback, maybe he'll make more money, but will he have a chance to earn another Super Bowl? I don't think so. Like I think this is a good fit for him. And it sucks that you're not the starter, but at least like, you're part of this legacy. You're part of this year's legacy. You're part of this dynasty now.
Absolutely.
Because you took control and got like, I would rather sit on the sidelines of a team that that's has a very good shot of winning the Super Bowl than go to a team that, is not going to have a shot. Right. And, and then maybe I get to play a couple games, if the guy gets, the starter gets injured, if Wentz goes down, and knowing that if Wentz goes down, I am very capable of getting us to the Super Bowl because I've done it once already.
Yeah. I know that I have the confidence in myself to handle the pressure. I have been through, except for snaps, I've been through all the rotations and everything like that our starter has been through, that sort of thing. Yeah.
All right. So obviously birds are winning the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah. At least by 10 points.
I feel like it's going to be very similar to the 04 Super Bowl, where it's going to be a close game. Though I will agree that maybe it will be a close game like that, but we score it'll be 24-21 and we score that touchdown at the very end to put us over.
Yeah, we'll see. I think they're going to be just running and gunning throughout the first half, tire out that defense.
Yeah, that's key too.
And our defense is dependable, 100% dependable through all four quarters.
Yeah.
The Patriots defense is not. They are good for 1-2 half of the third quarter if they're going up against a really good offense like we have. So I think we are going to score in the first half, and then our defense will take care of the rest in the second half.
I don't know. It's all exciting, and we're gonna win. It's in the air. So I had an interesting feed on my on Facebook. After we won the championship, and most of it was obviously very pro birds, but I had one friend who, and he didn't necessarily trash talk the birds. He mentioned, people, my feed, people saying something about, scumbag Eagles fans, and how they're not, not scumbag Eagles fans. Then they proceed to do scumbaggy things. And and then I go into the comments to see what, it was like probably over 100 comments deep of like people going back and forth with him. And he's not an Eagles fan, and I respect it. I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with it, and I don't think you will either, because we just sat here for over 45 minutes, basically blowing the Eagles. But
sorry,
he's not a fan, but he refuses to support the Eagles because of them signing Michael Vick. And that's, and I get it. And I never agreed with that signing, but there's two mindsets here. And that's that he thinks that no matter what he did, no matter what time he's paid, he's still, he's not a good person, and no team should have given him a second chance. While other people, right. and I fall more in this way of it, is that, I don't like the man. I don't like Michael Vick. I think he's a despicable human being, but he did pay his time. And while I rather have the Eagles not signed Michael Vick, despite how we know it played out, they did. And and especially now, and his point is that there's still one linchpin tied to the organization that brought him on board and signed paychecks, and that's the owner of the team. And his mindset is, I'll cheer the Eagles when he's no longer the owner. What is your thought on that that kind of thought process?
Well, it's hard because you sort of call it. You have to call it from a moral perspective, and everybody's moral perspective is going to be different. Do I think we should have signed Michael Vick? No. It was eventual that somebody was going to, and we just so happened to be in the position that, we needed somebody. He was available. So we made, in that sense, he was not a talent decision as much as he was a business decision.
Yes.
And, for me personally, I do think that Michael Vick is a shitty human being. Even if you do shitty things and then make up for it, that, everybody changes, and I get that, but you do still have to own the fact that you did this shitty thing,
yes,
in the past. And he has done a lot to make up for what he did and that sort of thing. I get it.
But even if someone does something to redeem themselves, you still don't have to like them as a person.
Yeah. And, it's a really tough thing that owners go through and that coaches go through and that fans especially go through, where it's, can you separate the player on the field from the player not on the field?
Yeah.
And that was one of those cases not. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I am able to discern between Michael Vick, the asshole, and Michael Vick, the player.
Yes. Yeah.
And for me, that I'm able to do that because I take into consideration a lot of other guys who still have jobs.
Yeah.
And they are accused rapists, accused beating of other people, especially women. I don't mind people who use drugs. I don't care about that. I don't care about performance enhancing drugs or if you smoke weed or whatever. But I mean, if you're doing meth, if you're doing heroin, if you have a couple of drug charges on some really hard shit, that is not the kind of guy that I want in a locker room with my team.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. So it's almost a case by case basis. And I can understand where the fury lies with the Eagles, or for Jeffrey Lurie, being willing to bring him on. Mm-hmm. For me personally, it's one of those things where, where does that go on the measuring stick of all the other horrible people that have had or do have jobs in the NFL?
And for me, it's like, even with Jeff Lurie being still here, like, and I mean, I watched games that Vic played, because at the end of the day, I'm thinking the same boat as you. It's like, I was able to say, listen, like, I don't have to like this guy as a person, but he's a good player, and and unfortunately, we signed him, and if we're going to sign him, we're going to use him, and he's doing his job. And I do believe that no matter, maybe there is a line, and I don't know what it is yet, but in this scenario where what he did, like, he deserves a second shot. Now, I don't personally think he deserves a second shot at making millions of dollars. I don't think he should have been allowed back into the NFL. I think that he could have gotten a second shot doing anything else with his life, even if it was in the entertainment business. Unfortunately, the NFL did let him back in, and the Eagles were the ones that took the business decision of bringing him on. And it's shitty, but right now I look at the 2018 team, and yes, Jeff Lurie is still there and he's the owner and he signed off on it, but I don't necessarily think that condemns the whole organization. You can look at this guy and say, you signed his paycheck and I do not respect you as a person. But for me, that's me. My friend who feels this way, I'm 100% like, hey man, that's your opinion, and you're entitled to it. And, I hope one day you can sit down and watch an Eagles game and cheer for them because, you did at one point. I just don't happen to share the same view. And I think that what the contention I saw in those comments were like, I don't know if he was saying this because I didn't really read it clearly, but I also don't think me supporting the Eagles now in 2018, or even supporting them when Vic was part of the team, I don't think that makes me a scummy person, because I fully acknowledge that. And if that's like the what my friend was insinuating, which I wasn't able to discern reading the comments, then then I don't agree with that. I don't, again, that's your opinion, but I don't agree that. And I don't think you should think that I'm a scummy person because I like the Eagles, who at one point in the past had a shitty person on their team. And I'm sure they've had many shitty people on their team. This one just gets you the wrong way because, and I'm a dog person too, but you're a dog person and I get that it rubs you the wrong way. Someone brought up, and I don't know enough about the hockey or Flyers to know, I like watching it, but I literally know, that's all I know, that they go back and forth and they score, I cheer. But I guess like in the 70s, there was a player, I don't know if he was convicted, but he was a rapist. And and this guy is a Flyers fan, and he doesn't condemn them. And one of the things he said was like, well, I wasn't alive for that. Maybe, I don't know if anyone's still involved with the organization that was around in the 70s. So maybe there's factors that he can argue to get into it. But to me, like, that's worse. Like if you're raping somebody.
I mean, if he's not going to be a fan of the Eagles because Jeff Lurie is still here and he signed off on a guy who did some jail time for being abusive to dogs, who is he a fan of now? What team does he associate with now or whenever, and why would he dismiss anything on that end? It's one of those things. Again, it's a moral perspective deal, and so it's hard to navigate.
It is, and it is a touchy. It's not really even a touchy subject. Like, I mean, he's a bad dude. Like Vic's not he's not a good dude. But yeah, you're right. It all kind of has the moral scale, which is interesting because I was just listening to Tell 'em Steve Dave the other day, and Walt wanted the government to teach morality in public schools, and that's the thing. Like, whose morale are you teaching? Because like my morality is obviously very different than my buddies, because I would say that the rapist, the person who raped a person, whether it's obviously if it's a kid it's more heinous, but the person like raped a grown woman, to me that's worse than what Vic did to a dog. Not that it's good, like they're both shitty people. I just think it's worse to rape somebody than it is to drown a dog.
It's like I said, it's how does it mark up on the measuring stick of nasty shit that people have done in American sports. It's
I think it's, and maybe if it's a better conversation to have with somebody, probably with my friend, to be honest, like, because you and I love the Eagles, and we're not letting that. So like, it was a very one-sided conversation, but I think it is an interesting debate to have with somebody that maybe feels that way, because it is a tricky slope, and I can respect someone that chooses to not support the team until every last bit of what supported that or what signed that is gone. I think where I have a disagreement is like, if you're sitting, and again, I'm not accusing my friend of saying this because I don't know if he did, but like, if he's sitting there calling Eagles fans scummy because they support the team because that still has connections to Vic, that I think is something that is completely separate than your own morality saying that I'm not going to support them.
There's a deeper issue going on there.
All right. BK, thanks for doing this, and thanks for being like the guinea pig of me recording in the middle of the day on my lunch break.
No problem, dude. Anytime, just give me a call and we'll set something up, man.
And I think we're gonna be bringing you on for the next round of the Dark Knights of the Round Table. I think we're gonna jump away from DC Comics and go to Star Wars.
It'll be the Dark Jedi Knights.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Oh yeah. Okay.
There we go. So before I let you go though, go ahead and give your plugs out for people.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're down for listening to podcasts, which I hope that you are, you can find me on iTunes, Earth vs. Ben, And the Poppin' Bottles Dadcast, if you like parenting stuff, we're actually about to do an episode of... we're actually about to start a sort of playoffs of our own with Sitcom Dads Fight Club. We're gonna start with 8 dads from popular sitcoms over the years, and then we're gonna whittle it down to 4, and then we're gonna whittle it down to a final 2, and then we'll have a poll for what who the ultimate champion of sitcom dads is. But so yeah, that's coming soon on there. And
That's
then
amazing.
if you like to read, I blog at earthversusben.com and lifeofdad.com.
Very cool. Very cool. BK, always a pleasure to talk to you, and we'll have you on again, as always.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, man.
All right. Thank you to BK Mullen once again for being on the show and talking birds with me. What an exciting year for if you're a Philadelphia fan in all sports, but especially football. What a special time. I still get goosebumps thinking about that game. It was, just the NFC East game and in general was a good game, but that's super. And we're going to talk Super Bowl in a couple weeks here. Hopefully with my buddy Dan Kurtz. He was an old co-host in the Muff Squad, so hopefully I get to sit down with him and we're going to chat about the Super Bowl a bit. But anyway, that was my conversation with BK Mullen. Make sure you check out all his stuff that he does. Poppin' Dad's Bottle Cast. God damn, I'm tripping. I'm so tired right now, so I apologize for stumbling over that plug. But check out his podcast, check out his blogs, all the notes, all the plugs are in the show notes. I can't even speak. I'm so tired. It's 3:48 in the afternoon. I'm so tired. Unbelievable. Anyway, we're going to end this train wreck before I stumble over more words. Check us out on awesomepodcast.com. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at RealAwesomePod. Facebook.com/RealAwesomePod is where we make most of our major announcements. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at ThatNerdyKev. That is where I do most of my tweeting and whatnot. So we hope to see you on the other side. We are part of the Core Temp Arts Podcast Network. And we'll be back next in a couple days with our 2-year anniversary special live from Tattooed Moms at the 2nd annual Everything is Awesome Let's F Cancer Podiversary Festival. Man, that's a mouthful, huh? We'll see you on the other side right here on awesomepodcast.com.
Thank you for listening to the Core Temp Arts Podcast Network. To listen to more Core Temp Arts shows, visit coretemparts.com.